Welcome to Mitchell Levy Presents, where I dive into the essential elements of clarity and credibility. Hosted by global credibility expert Mitchell Levy, today's episode offers invaluable insights to make you think and act more credibly. Join us as we explore living your values, boosting your credibility, and leading purposefully. Hi, Mitchell Levy, global credibility expert, and we're at one of the funnest times of my day when I get to talk to a leader who I really enjoy getting to know, which we already have, who I feel is worthy of you guys seeing, and then we get to talk more. Like, how cool is that? So today we have David Carr. David, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Mitchell. Wonderful to be here with you.
Oh, that's awesome. Hey, so David, who are you?
Great question. I'll back up a little bit here. David Carr. I'm born and raised here in Southern California. I love the outdoors. I've been big into nature. I'm grateful to be a husband of over 20 years with my wife, going on 21 years this summer, and two great children. Well, I should say teens. So I love being a dad. And a founder of the company Steward Your Business. I started about in 2022 after spending 25 years in the environmental consulting space, Mitchell, and happy to unpack more, but just excited to be here with you and share with your audience. So thanks again for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. All right. So I have two kids, boy or girl?
I have a 19-year-old daughter and almost 17-year-old son. Yeah. So we're getting almost out of the teenage years, and my daughter is going to get married this year. So that's a new transition as well for us. Yes, I know, right? So we're just like, okay, just life changes. But I'm grateful. Just turned 52 the end of November. I'm grateful, that the 50s have been good to me so far. So knock on wood, healthy. Getting outdoors. I love skiing. We're about 20 minutes away from a local ski resort, so I love to get outside and enjoy nature and skiing and outdoors. It's good stuff.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So what is an environmental consultant?
Great question too. I got my degree in zoology actually here in Southern California, Cal Poly Pomona. That's my alma mater. And I didn't know that environmental consulting even existed, to be honest with you. The academic world doesn't do a really good job of explaining that. But basically, what I came in as an environmental consultant was we have laws, the Federal Endangered Species Act, we have the Clean Water Act, right? We have in California, we have the California Endangered Species Act. So we have a lot of federal, state, local laws, maybe a tree protection ordinance, something like that. And so what I was able to do was take my love of nature and the outdoors, wildlife, and be able to convert that into a career, helping private developers, helping public entities, utilities, Department of Defense, you kind of name it, transportation, all these different industries, all the different sectors comply with these environmental laws, and make sure that they're, taking care of our natural resources. And most people want to do the right thing. But there are these laws and regulations in place that we help do that on a local, regional area. I worked for the County of Riverside here in Southern California for a few years on a habitat conservation plan. Anyways, all of that to being said, it's my love of nature and outdoors, and like, how did I focus that we could do that well? And so I just realized that over the course of my career, Mitchell, I was really good at kind of bringing people together, and you have different stakeholders, people that are driven different in a lot of different ways. Think about a construction or a big construction project, right? They got to do this or safety. We've got different drivers. So I just realized I was really good at bringing all these different people together and helping them focus and get the mission done. And in this case, it was taking care of the environment.
That's interesting. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking my initial question is still the one I'm going to ask.
Yes.
But it sort of changed because you kind of answered. So what's interesting is you bring a bunch of stakeholders together,
Yep.
and the goal is to take care of the environment. And I wanted, my thought was carrot or stick, right? Are you
Yeah.
in that role? Were you mostly a guy who did the carrot thing, or did you do the stick thing, or both, or how did
Well,
that
that's a great question. I think early on in your career, at least I found, is people will try to use a stick more than the carrot. They try to hit people over the head of like, this is the law, this is the regulation. And it is, but that what I found over the course of my career is that people don't just like, oh, I would love to comply with the law. I mean, we have to try to work on the hearts and minds. And
Oh yeah,
I
yeah. We need
learned,
to work on the hearts and the minds.
yeah,
Got it.
oh,
Okay.
there
Wait,
can,
wait,
yes,
wait. wait.
yes,
Okay,
yes,
gotcha.
you got me. Yeah, because I think what happens is we try to go to the mind first, and then we don't, and I've learned you got to start with the heart. What is motivating people? Um, and what I found was also understanding what their objectives were. So if I just try to hit them over the head and say, this is it, and I didn't understand how I fit into the bigger picture, it caused a lot of conflict and challenge. And even though, and being married for almost 20, 21 years, I could be right and still lose at the end of the day, so there's a lot. You could be right but lose. So there's a point of like, I'm beating over the stick, I'm right, but I'm not really winning, and we're all kind of losing here at the end of the day. And so to your point, I've learned to move from the stick to the carrot.
So what would that? Well, in a typical engagement, what would that mean?
I'll give you an example. So um with let's just use construction because I did a lot of work with construction. And they're trying to build a project, but yet let's just say we have a stream or we have a nest or something that could be affected, right? It was like helping them understand. Look, we're here not as a adversary to you. We're not trying to make your life more difficult, but if you don't let us help you get the work done. So you're going to have to avoid this area for a time, and we're going to do our best to keep our tabs on it and understand what's going on and help you get this project move forward. But if you kind of are yelling and bitching and just being, aggressive and confrontational, that's not going to help us either. That's going to create a challenge for both sides. So if we understand your objective and our objective, and it's like, how can we come alongside each other and be communicative, and saying, okay, I hear what you're trying to do. We're going to do everything that we can to, if it's checking, we had a lot of nests, for example. So there's Migratory Bird Treaty Act, so you can't attack certain nests. So we would say, well, we're going to go check on that nest rather than just once a week. We'll go check on it twice a week, as long as we didn't affect the bird's activity, for example. Or we would look at things. Could we maybe adjust the buffer, the area that you're working in? Is there a reason that we can shrink that up for them? So we would try to come up and understand what they're trying to do, and vice versa, and not just be hardlined of like, it's just this way and just deal with it. I think you have to be able to come at it in listening to what their concerns were, their objectives, even if sometimes we couldn't do anything about it, but at least listen to them and hear them out as to, this is what's happening, this is what affects us. And it's like, okay, we're going to try and see what we can do with it. Maybe at the end of the day we can't, but I think practicing listening and feeling people at least feel heard and seen is really important.
So, David, you used the word "we" in this case. Now, did you
Mhm.
have a team you were working with, or you're talking about "we" for the
Both.
environment, or
Yeah, both. So generally speaking, what I learned, Mitchell, is I would have direct reports, or I'd be managing a team of biologists or other professionals. And when I say team, and this is it's just my language, I usually would say, "Hey team," or "Hey we," because I feel very inclusive. I really don't want to have an us and them, and so it's also the construction team and all these different parties. And so I had many meetings, as you can imagine, Mitchell, where it wasn't just the construction, it was the planning team, it was the procurement team, it was all these different people. And so it's like there's a lot of voices, I'm on a big development project, and we're looking at the schedule and the coordination with the city and the local jurisdiction and the approval and the different agencies. And so there's a lot of moving parts. But I think when we think about this, and this goes for the companies and the people I work with, when we think about we, it's different in that how we win or we lose together. It's not us, or when it's us or them, that to me is a red flag, as to what's going on as far as trust in relationships.
I gotcha. So,
Mhm.
was there ever a scenario where you were either directly in a meeting with the client or in private meetings with your team where they pointed out something about your interpretation which wasn't right?
Mm. Yeah, I think that there's times where I have been wrong and I've learned to embrace that, or it's like say, hey, maybe I misinterpreted that or I saw it differently, and I had to be able to say, you know what, I didn't see it that way, or I misread it that way, and I if it's being 52 now, I can take it a little better. Back in the day, Mitchell, it was a little harder, and I probably honestly, now I reflect back on it, wasn't mature enough to listen or hear some people, and it took some time to hear concerns, or like, for example, I'd have a biologist saying, look, I feel like this schedule is going too hard, they're not giving us enough time to survey or get ahead, and I said, well, we just need to get this through, and then we'd have an incident or something would happen, and I'm like, I didn't take to heart what you were saying. And in fact, I had a colleague, Mitchell, that he was very like even keel, and when he talked about things, he didn't make like a big deal about it, like in the sense of I couldn't sense it. So we joked. I said to him, look, tell me like your hair's on fire, and like I would know that this is a big deal, because I just missed it. I was, because it was kind of even, so it was all even tone, and I couldn't distinguish like this is a big deal. So he would actually tell me, David, my hair's on fire. I know I'm not yelling or screaming or anything, but my hair's on fire. I'm really concerned. I'm like, okay, good. I need to stop and pay attention, because I wasn't clued in on how important this was. So I had to empower him to say something to me, because I was just, missing the mark in that case.
Hmm. I hear
Hmm.
you. Huh.
Hmm.
All right. I'm going to switch. Thank you for that. I'm going to
Yeah.
switch to family.
Hmm.
Give me an example of a family encounter. I mean, you could do your wife. You already said that
Yep.
winning, winning a battle is absolutely not winning a war. So
Yeah.
you've already alluded to that. But
Yeah.
a lot of times it's learning from our kids that are
Oh
pretty
yeah.
cool. Give me an example of a opportunity where you learn something from one of your two kids.
Well, I think both kids, your kids are amazing mirrors to you, right? So if I say something and I don't follow through in what I said, kids are pretty good about bringing that up and pointing that back up. You said you were going to do this. You said you were going to follow through on this, and you didn't do it. And I'm a person that's very a supportive person. I'm a very can-do person. I definitely, and my team and my kids I've overpromised at times and underdelivered. So I've had to look and evaluate myself and saying, look, you're right. I missed the mark. I overpromised. I got overly ambitious. And so I'm a recovering yes man. I'm like, yes, I'll do this. Yes, I'll do that. I've had to learn to say no and recognize my boundaries, because I don't want to disappoint my children, especially if we're going to go somewhere or do something particular and then it doesn't happen. Um, to me, that I don't want to be out of integrity. I want to, make sure that and or if I do get out of integrity, turn it around as quickly as possible, acknowledge it, and don't get defensive or don't try to blame them. Just recognizing this is a gift that they're speaking into my life, that I can actually help become a better person in my journey. Yeah.
A recovering yes man. When did you figure that out?
Oh goodness. It's been years in the process, honestly, Mitchell. I would say, as I would say a recovering yes person, a recovering nice guy. I used to think being nice was a good label. Now I don't. I would rather be labeled kind versus nice. Um, because nice is kind of going along to get along and just kind of shaking my head and acknowledging and not really saying what needed to be said. And I think as a yes person, and if any of those you guys can relate, I use a tool called the Five Voices as a connector. I want to connect so much with Mitchell that I would just kind of say yes or kind of acknowledge it. And not really expressing my true feelings. And so I realized that's not healthy. It's not healthy for me. And it also gives people a understanding of who I am, or am I all in, or I'm not all in. So there was confusion there. So it's been a journey. I will say I'm a lot better now, but there's still times where I will actually tell people, Mitchell, they're asking me something or they're presenting an opportunity. I say, you know what? my tendency is to say yes, but I know myself and I really need to evaluate and count the cost of saying yes, because by saying yes means also saying no to something else. And I have to be cognizant of that. And so I've gotten better at, counting the cost to saying yes.
By the way, for those listening, that's a great aha moment.
Mm, mm,
And it's couched so well, right?
yeah.
So it's the, hey, I want to say yes. And before I do, let me reflect on what that really means. Let me get back to you.
Hmm.
But then, of course, you got to get back to them.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Speaking of getting back, I was asking for a scenario with your kids where you learned something,
Yeah.
and you did say sort of something, but I'm going to hold you to that. Give me a good example.
So specifically, um, where my son has asked for certain things. My son's now 16, going on 17. And like, hey, I want to go out and I'll go. He's big into Pokemon, and so he said, let's go do Pokemon. Or I want to go play. I want to play Pokemon with me. And so I would have to be careful about saying, yes, I'll play Pokemon with you today or for a certain time, and then not actually do it, because hey, work got in the way. I let things keep going instead of being holding true and saying, no, that's right, and being attention too to what's important to him. I'm not, maybe not always, like, that's not my big thing. I get so excited about it, but it's important to him because he's going to beat my butt anyways. He's so good at it. It's like, I'm going to go and play and get beat. Okay, that's fine. But then it was like, realize, okay, this is important to him. I need to prioritize this. I need to make time for it and not just think of it as an afterthought, Mitchell. And so that's a careful thing I got to be careful about, and just letting things just kind of fill in between there. And so that's an example that, and even to this day, I don't want him to lose the enthusiasm of connecting with me. I'm very grateful for both of my kids that they like to spend time. In fact, this weekend we're here in Southern California. We're going to go to the Pasadena Comic-Con together as a family and go geek out together. So
Oh man,
fun,
I want to go.
you know, so we geeked out together, and I appreciate that. I really am thankful for that.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so I'm going to still dive deep in the family side.
Go
Tell me
ahead.
the time in which your wife, and women are so universally amazing. At least I have one as
Yeah.
well. Tell me the time in which you won the battle, and then of course she let you win the battle,
Mm.
and then she showed you that hey, there's a bigger war here. It's not the right words
Hmm.
about,
Hmm.
hey, you won this moment, but it's not really a win.
Yes.
Give me an
Yeah.
example of that.
Oh, that's a good one. So, there's always more work to be had, and so if I have a meeting or a client call, and this is I've gotten better at this, but early on in my career, what would happen was, she's all supportive of me, like you said, hey, go do the work, win the work, but what the bigger picture was, I was letting all of that creep in, and so I was letting date night slip away. I was letting some time to being more intentional with her, because hey, I'm getting all these accolades at work. She sees I'm taking care of the family, which is all good, overall, but not at the good expense of, hey, you haven't we haven't gone out in the last few weeks. Hey, what, you're not prioritizing me. So yes, you are working and all that good stuff, but you're not prioritizing me. And so I just recognized, especially early on in my career, I had a I was doing the environmental consulting thing, like I said, Mitchell, earlier. I actually ran a DJ company too. I was doing events on the weekend. I enjoyed that too. And there came a point where my wife's like, you know what? I'd rather have you here than you go making the money and being gone all the weekends and everything like that. And I said, you know what? You're right. I needed to let that go. Talk about saying yes and no to things. Say no to that, even though it was good, and had people saying, "Hey, we'd love to have you work." I said, "No, I need to. My wife's more important. I need to spend the time there." And I don't know. As a man, I've learned, you can easily get caught up in the career and just all of that stuff and the accolades and keep going there, and then you can neglect your wife or your family. And and at the end of the day, the people, your relationships are the ones that are going to be remaining standing. The business stuff and all that stuff is going to fade away. It's like, so I'm like, I had to make a pivot there in a good way, Mitchell,
Mm,
you
that's a
know?
great
Hmm.
that's a great pivot.
Hmm.
It's important for two things. It's important for more men to learn that. It's
Hmm.
also important for more, or how about more spouses to learn that, working
Hmm.
spouses to learn that. And it's also important for more sort of supporting spouses to be able to talk in such a language that the other person can hear it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's a two-sided thing, right? There's
Hmm.
ways in which you can present that information so was there ever a time where she might present information in such a you that she got under your skin?
Many times.
Ah,
Many times, Mitchell. Like I said, my wife and I are like complete opposites in a lot of ways. In fact, we were just talking about this last night, and um, I mentioned earlier, I use a framework called the Five Voices, and we're very different. And I call it her guardian voice. She's just very particular, Mitchell, about step by step, very risk averse, wants to make sure everything is taken care of today. She's very present oriented and very, and that attracted me initially when we dated. It was very much because it was not who I was. But what I found is, and it doesn't always happen, but I found a lot of people get married. They find people that are very different from them because it's interesting, exotic, it's different, it's awesome. I mean, in that regard. But what happens is what drew you together can also be be polarizing, and now it actually is the opposite. It's annoying. It's good, like you said, under your skin, right? Yeah.
it's funny. I call that hunter for her food and shelter,
Uh-huh.
and for me hunter gatherer.
Yes.
And
Uh-huh.
it's such an interesting um, it's such an interesting dynamic
Mhm.
because there are times in which I'll have conversations with somebody else, and maybe they're sick or something happened, and the level of questions I ask is so different. So I would get off the phone, I feel like I have a really deep, robust conversation, and I was very supportive. And then my wife would say, "So, what about that?" I'm like, "Didn't think about asking that question."
Yep. Yep. I can relate, you know? Uh, and I think to your point, Mitchell, I think, in my immature stage, I would get more resentful or bitter about that, and I would feel kinda critiqued and so I couldn't receive it in the spirit that it was being given. I learned that it's just her natural way of being. It's the way she shows love, appreciation, care in asking the questions or bringing these things up. And I said, so it took maturity on my end to understand and appreciate that about her. And so it's been a journey. It's like learning together. I think this is the journey of marriage. Of like, I think if you and through seasons of life, and you know um if you can do it, if you can run the distance and stay in it, stay in it. And I think people get out of marriages too easily. I think there's challenges in there, but I think the journey of like becoming and learning to love another person, and this has been kind of foundational. Me, Mitchell, is like truly loving somebody is loving them when they're the most unlovable, because love is, to me, this coming from this place of abundance. And I know you have your book there, executive abundance, but coming from an abundance of like, I have more to give, I have more to offer. And it's not about taking, it's not about extracting. But when I was immature, and I still at times, I was like, I found somebody that, my immaturity, I found somebody that loved me, or I was trying to pull from and extract from them, and that's not a healthy place to be. It was more like, I want to come from a place of giving, and whether they respond in the way that I want them to or act in the way that I want them to, it's because I have an abundance that I want to share. And it goes for my wife, it goes for my kids, it goes from all the people in my life, that I want to come from a place of an abundance. And I love that. I love the book title, executive abundance. But abundance is such a powerful word.
Oh, it is at that.
Yeah.
Hey, so super quickly, who do you
Yeah.
serve? Who's that audience that you, as a professional service provider, who do
Oh,
you serve?
yeah. Well, like I said, I kind of have gone back to my roots in serving professional services, particularly those in the AEC, architecture, engineering, environmental consulting, construction space, just because I lived it. I know what it's like to go from a subject matter expert, technical person, to move up to project manager and to have to start to manage people and all that stuff. But honestly, I love working with organizations. I love working with individuals too that are maybe a new supervisor, they're in a new role of director or operations or VP, and they're like, you know what, I don't have anyone else to talk to, or I'm feeling a little bit isolated or alone, and so last year I started a group coaching program too for those to come in and have a space where they could talk in community and have connection. And so at the end of the day, that's my mission, is to kind of bring people together, have that space for them, and to work with business owners and their teams. And I have loved doing it since starting Steward Your Business in 2022. And God willing, the creek don't rise, I'll keep at it. You know?
I love that. Okay, so if you're in the audience and you're listening or watching and you're interested, and David Carr sort of hit a chord in some particular way, and you want to reach out to him, David, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Well, you and I are connected on LinkedIn, so please, by all means, you're welcome to reach out to me there on LinkedIn. My website, stewardyourbusiness.com. I'm on all the platforms there. I would love to hear from them, and happy to brainstorm, share ideas. I really appreciate you having me here on the podcast and the conversation today, Mitchell.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah.
All right. So, given where the conversation went and what we talked about, is there a question that I should have asked that I didn't?
Well, you did a great job, Mitchell, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I would just say, for those of you that are haven't been able to articulate as well who you are and what you're about, and Mitchell, you're so good about asking these questions, honestly. But I feel like for me, that was the biggest journey in my professional career, like being able to move beyond my technical skills as a biologist and understand who I am internally. And I love what you do and the questions you've asked, but I think that would be the one I would say is, who are you? And for me, it is ultimately this connector, this person that brings people together. That's my personal why. And we've talked about this too, and outside of this, but why I do what I do or how I do it is just really creating that space, and excited to continue to do that through Steward Your Business. And I'm just thankful to be here with you. So thanks so much, Mitchell.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome. So, hey, listen, I want to say thank you, David, so much for joining us. Really appreciate that. And what I'd like to be able to do is call on you. If you've heard one thing that was super compelling, super exciting, your aha moment, I'd like you to post it. So take it, post it on whatever social platform you spend time on, and be able to tag. So it's David W. Carr. So tag David or tag me on whatever platform you're in, and we'll respond appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And David, once again, thanks so much for joining me. And for everyone out there, we'll see you at the next episode of Leaders Living Their Value. Thanks again, everyone. Bye now. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you found value in today's episode. Like, subscribe, and share your aha moments on your preferred platform. Remember, credibility starts with clarity and living your values. Learn more at mitchelllevy.com. Until next time.